The Simpsons! Yeah, at this point the Simpsons are as American as apple pie, or American as a father choking out his son, which still happens. When this dysfunctional family first showed up as shorts, not those kind of shorts, on the Tracy Ullman Show, the designs and animation were pretty nuts. It was rough as hell, gritty, and had a real true indie style, much akin to some of the cartoons you see on YouTube these days. But as the years went on, this happened. Why is it so clean and competently drawn? The Simpsons even had a huge impact on me with its quirky characters, amazingly written stories, non sequiturs, and cutaway gags. Family Guy made a whole show based off of those cutaways, so they must have been good. This isn't about the show's writing though, which has taken quite the nosedive in the last couple decades. But when it comes to the art style, I think I can get The Simpsons back to its kind of funny, ugly, indie, cartoony-ass roots. So let's go make The Simpsons cartoony. And now, a special message from Subbug. Alright, starting with Homer. In the original shorts, he was kind of just like mean dad. This was the case in the first season too, but then something happened. He got dumb. Real dumb. Where the show kind of focused on Bart in the beginning, it then started focusing on Homer. I love dumb Homer episodes. Homer Goes to College, Homie the Clown, the classics. When The Simpsons first started, way back when, it was animated by a studio called Class Kichupo, and then moved to another studio called Film Roman, and now it's just produced in-house at Fox Animation. Yeah, I wonder why it's called that. No matter how hard you try, the style is always going to shift a little bit during a studio change. And if you're a cartoon nerd like me, you can tell. Especially during the early Class Kichupo seasons. If you don't know Klasky's work, they did Rugrats. Yeah, they were formed by Eastern European animators, but their work on The Simpsons was pretty good. Timing and the cycles would be funny. You know, the style I'm after here with my drawings. Trying to really get the spirit of those early Simpsons shorts that Klasky did, where everyone looked wild. Anyway, Film Roman is where it started to get really tied down and formulaic. And nowadays, yeah, it's just kind of paint by numbers. Okay, I'm feeling pretty good with this Homer here, so let's just move on to Marge. For Marge, I don't want to give her a derpy, frumpy body. It's kind of like she's actually an attractive woman that no way in heck Homer could actually get. But then she had kids, she put her hair up, but she's still attractive. I want to keep that. The rest of the characters can be the little turds that they are, but we'll give Marge some respect here. Although she looked pretty mean and nasty in those original shorts. So maybe, let's give her a little bit of that exhausted mom look. If you had to take care of those 3 animals plus Homer all day, you'd be tired too. So we'll combine the attractive mom and the tired mom. Wait, is that actually more depressing? But cartoonier, right? There's an old guide on how to draw The Simpsons, I think by David Silverman, I'm not sure. Put a link down below where you can check him out for yourself if you haven't seen him. It will make your head spin. I know I rail against model sheets, but as I also said before, I do understand their purpose in life. If that's the style you want, aka no funny business, then by all means, make a super technical drawing bible. In my opinion, cartoons should be living, breathing things, and the animator's personality should be seen in those drawings. But we live in a world where animation, like The Simpsons, gets sent overseas to be animated, and those overseas artists are just a lot of times just plucked off the streets. So there's gotta be rules. Lots of rules. But anyway, whatever, check out that drawing guide and see for yourself how difficult it is to draw and animate The Simpsons. Bart is a pretty complex character. He started off as a snot-nosed little brat, but he evolved the most, I think. He's actually pretty smart, and smart enough to become Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in the future. But for this, to make him more cartoonier, let's just lean into the bratty jerk-face side of Bart. One thing I always digged about him was that he wasn't really the bully. He was a bad kid, but he didn't F with others. That was Nelson and Jimbo's job, the other bullies, Kearney, the bald kid. Anyway, I think that was a smart move on the writer's behalf. Bart kind of became a defender of the weird, the outcast kids, while also being a terrible student and son. More of a prankster. Like I said, complex. So design-wise, let's make his hair more wild. Yes, more of a wild child look, like it used to look like. And those spikes, I mean, they're iconic too. You draw those spikes and people know who it is. Let's also talk about that little belly Bart has. I love it. He's a future Homer after all. So let's make sure to give him that belly here. Ever see how to storyboard The Simpsons Way by Brad Bird? Even though it's a storyboarding guide for more primetime feature animation style, it's actually pretty great because it teaches you a lot of the basics of storytelling with the camera. But this more cinematic, I hate that word, style got the show further away from its roots, right? It set the visual tone of The Simpsons. And this guide was one of the first things I ever saw on how to storyboard. So even though I don't really follow this kind of primetime way of boarding, there are some really great common sense tips that every board artist should know. Some tips are even still ingrained in my mind. But writing, boarding, and animation style, they all go hand in hand. So the more complex the writing and the characters got, the more complicated the storyboarding got, more angles, upshots, and downshots, etc. And a byproduct of that is the animation becomes more tied down and basic to complement the writing. And that's kind of the primetime formula these days. Anyway, definitely check out the guide if you want to be a board artist, whether you want to be a cartoony board artist like myself, or you want to be a feature guy or girl, whatever. Yeah, and also check out my storyboarding for cartoony cartoons too. I'll link it down below. And here we go, cartoony or Bart. Everyone's least favorite, Lisa. Ha! I think that's by design. They had to put like a smarty pants into the family. She's a kid you never want to talk to. She's way smarter than you and you're a middle-aged man with a good job. That is embarrassing. But Lisa is put in her place a lot because she is a kid, and that again is smart writing and does make her likable. Even though I said we weren't going to lean to the writing of this show, you still gotta think about it a little bit because that's where their characters come from. So there's a sense of pity too, feeling bad for Lisa that she's stuck in this family of morons. And like Bart, she has that iconic spiky hair. I always thought it kind of resembled a sun or something. I mean, it does. So we gotta make sure we get that right. And Lisa being a smarty pants was a later thing because in the shorts, she's like Bart a lot. A little jerk-faced brat. The early Tracy Ullman Show shorts, the characters are all pretty crazy, right? And the lip sync. No one ever talks about that funny ass lip sync. They do that thing where like the head churns but the mouth stays still when they really wanted to put emphasis on a word. I missed that. I think when the show moved production to film Roman, yeah, all that stopped. And cartoony Lisa. Alright, Maggie, she's kind of a little Lisa design. Only, you know, in baby form and with that pacifier. As someone who draws, I appreciate she basically has no body. Easy. Maggie was huge in the original shorts. I don't mean like huge and like there was like a lot of stories about her and she was a main character. No, I mean like physically she was huge. I think she might have been bigger than Bart. All the kids were huge actually, but Maggie was like hiding a full-on adult body in that onesie. I'm not just trying to copy the early shorts, obviously, I touched on this before, but being cartoony is all about being free, right? Freedom. To not be tied down to endless model sheets and style guides and do's and don'ts, right? You just draw the characters as you feel, and as they fit into the scene, as crazy and or maybe as not crazy as you see fit. That's the beauty of animation. We can contort and distort anything for a joke, a gag, a story point, etc. Do it! So how about this for a cartoony Maggie? Alright, so let's see if I succeed in making the Simpsons cartoony. Let's get Smug out here. Smug! Smug is a friend, enemy, 3 times award-winning producer, and a wannabe master cartoonist himself. Sup? What do you think, Smug? Did I make the Simpsons cartoonier? I guess. You guess? I just spent 3 hours drawing all this crap and that's all you— Why, you little—